Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into some really fascinating research on a new cancer treatment called Cobolimab. It's a pretty complex topic, so thankfully we have our expert here to help us unpack it all and understand why it's creating such a buzz in the oncology world. So yeah, we've got a whole stack of articles and research papers to get through today. So let's just dive right in.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting stuff. Cobolimab really could represent a significant leap forward in how we approach cancer treatment, especially when we look at how it works alongside other immunotherapies.
All right, so let's start with the basics. What exactly is Cobolimab, and how does it actually differ from the more traditional cancer treatments like chemotherapy?
Okay, sure. So cobolimab is what's known as a monoclonal antibody, and that's essentially a protein created in a lab that acts a bit like a guided missile, zeroing in on a very specific part of the immune system. And what sets it apart from chemo, which attacks all rapidly dividing cells, is that it specifically targets something called TIM-3.
Gotcha. Okay. So I've been seeing TIM-3 mentioned quite a bit in these articles we've been looking at. What exactly is it, and how does it relate to cancer?
So TIM-3 is a protein that typically helps to regulate the immune system, make sure it doesn't overreact. But cancer cells are sneaky. They've figured out a way to kind of exploit this TIM-3, using it like a shield to hide themselves from any attacks by the immune system. It's almost as if the cancer cells are waving a white flag, tricking the immune system into leaving them alone.
So it's almost like cancer is using TIM-3 to put the immune system's army to sleep.
That's actually a great analogy. And that's exactly where cobolimab comes into play. It essentially blocks TIM-3, ripping away that shield and waking up those sleepy immune cells.
That's fascinating. But I'm curious, how does waking up the immune system actually help to fight the cancer? I mean, our immune system is already trying to attack cancer cells, right?
Yeah, it is. But sometimes it needs a little bit of a helping hand. You see, the immune system has these specialized cells called T cells. Think of them as like elite soldiers who are trained to identify and eliminate any invaders. But when cancer activates TIM-3, it's like issuing a stand-down order to these soldiers. They become exhausted and less effective in fighting off the cancer. Cobolimab's role is to essentially lift that order, revitalizing those T cells and giving them the boost they need to effectively fight the cancer.
So it's not just about removing the shield. It's about re-energizing those T cell soldiers so they can get back to work and attack those cancer cells head on.
Precisely. And what's really promising is that cobolimab seems to work particularly well when it's combined with other types of immunotherapy, like the ones that target the PD-1 pathway.
Right. You mentioned PD-1 inhibitors earlier. I know those also target the immune system, but I understand it's in a different way than Cobolimab. Could you explain a little bit about how they differ and why using them together could potentially be so effective?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So you can think of PD-1 as another kind of off switch that cancer cells can manipulate to suppress the immune system. PD-1 inhibitors, which have already made a significant impact in cancer treatment, block this off switch. But there's a catch. Not everyone responds to PD-1 inhibitors, and sometimes cancer cells can develop resistance to them.
So is it that by combining Cobolimab with a PD-1 inhibitor, you're essentially hitting the cancer with a double whammy?
Exactly. By combining the two, you're basically blocking two different pathways that cancer cells use to evade the immune system. This 1-2 punch can be much more effective than either drug on its own, and could even work for cancers that haven't responded to other treatments.
This is all starting to sound like a major breakthrough. You mentioned this combination therapy is showing some promising results in clinical trials. What types of cancers are researchers primarily focused on right now?
We're actually seeing positive results across a range of different cancers. Melanoma, lung cancer, colorectal cancer, and lymphoma are just a few examples. But what's particularly exciting is that cobolimab could potentially help patients who have stopped responding to other therapies, including those PD-1 inhibitors we just talked about.
That's amazing news. But before we get too carried away, I want to circle back to something you mentioned a little earlier, biosimilars. I was reading in the Assay Genie article that they're developing a cobolimab biosimilar. Can you break down what a biosimilar is exactly and why they're so important in research like this?
Yeah, of course. A biosimilar is basically a highly similar version of a complex biologic drug like cobolimab. It's not an exact replica, but it's carefully designed to have the same effects on the body. Think of it like a generic version of a brand name drug. It has the same effect, but it's potentially more affordable and accessible.
Okay, I see. So why not just use the original cobolimab for research? Why go through the effort of developing a biosimilar?
That's a good question. There are a couple of key advantages to using a biosimilar for research. Firstly, as I mentioned, they're generally more affordable, which is a huge factor considering how expensive research can be. And secondly, biosimilars give researchers more freedom to really delve into how a drug works and to explore its potential applications.
That makes a lot of sense. It frees them up from the restrictions and costs that might come with using the original drug. I also read in that Assay Genie article that their Cobolimab biosimilar has already been utilized in various studies. Can you give us a specific example of how researchers are using this biosimilar to make progress in the fight against cancer?
Definitely. One area where biosimilars are proving to be extremely valuable is in understanding how Cobolimab interacts with other therapies. For instance, researchers are using the Assay Genie biosimilar to study how different doses and combinations of Cobolimab and PD-1 inhibitors impact tumor growth in various types of cancers.
So it's like they're using the biosimilar to fine-tune the recipe for this combination therapy.
Exactly. They're figuring out the optimal doses and combinations to maximize the effectiveness while minimizing any potential side effects.
This is also fascinating. We've talked about how Cobolimab works on a molecular level and how it's being used in clinical trials. Now, I'd love to zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture of immunotherapy. Where do you see this field headed in the next few years?
That's a great question, and one that gets me really excited about the future of cancer treatment. You know what's really fascinating is that TIM-3 and PD-1 are just two of many immune checkpoints that scientists are currently investigating.
Wait, are you telling me that there are even more of these checkpoints that cancer cells can manipulate?
Yeah, it is kind of mind-boggling, isn't it? But the immune system is incredibly complex, and there are actually multiple checkpoints in place to regulate its activity.
Wow, so it's like a delicate dance.
Exactly. It's this carefully choreographed dance. And cancer cells have learned how to kind of disrupt that dance, tipping the balance in their favor. But the more we understand about these checkpoints, the better equipped we'll be to develop new therapies that can restore that balance and help the immune system fight back effectively.
So are you saying that each of these checkpoints could potentially be a target for new cancer therapies?
That's precisely what makes this area of research so incredibly exciting. There's a whole world of potential targets out there just waiting to be discovered for new immunotherapies.
Wow, that really does open up a whole new frontier in cancer treatment. Imagine all the possibilities if we could unlock the secrets of these other checkpoints.
It really is mind-blowing to think about. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, it means that the future of cancer treatment could become highly personalized.
Personalized. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure, picture this. A patient gets diagnosed with cancer, right? And doctors can run tests to pinpoint the exact immune checkpoints that are being exploited by their specific tumor. Then, based on that information, they could tailor a combination therapy using drugs that target those very specific checkpoints.
So instead of a one-size-fits-all approach, we could have a custom-designed immunotherapy cocktail for each patient.
Exactly. And that could dramatically increase treatment effectiveness and potentially minimize side effects because you're tailoring the treatment to the individual's unique needs and their specific type of cancer.
That's an incredible concept. But wouldn't that require a massive amount of research to fully understand all these different checkpoints and all the intricate ways they interact?
Absolutely. It's a huge undertaking, for sure. But that's precisely where the development of biosimilars plays such a crucial role.
Ah, so those biosimilars we were talking about earlier could help speed up the research process for all these potential new therapies.
Exactly. Having readily available and affordable biosimilars allows researchers to explore multiple avenues of research simultaneously. They can conduct larger scale studies, test a wider range of combinations, and really accelerate the pace of discovery.
I see. I'm starting to see how all of these pieces of the puzzle fit together. Identifying new immune checkpoints, developing targeted therapies, and utilizing biosimilars to really push the research forward. It's a whole ecosystem of innovation.
That's a great way to put it. It's a dynamic ecosystem that's constantly evolving, and it's all fueled by collaboration. Scientists from various disciplines, immunology, oncology, genetics, bioengineering, are all coming together to really unlock the full potential of immunotherapy.
It's just amazing to think that by blocking just one protein like TIM-3, we could potentially unleash the power of our own immune systems to fight cancer. It makes you really appreciate the incredible complexity of the human body, doesn't it?
It truly does, and we've only just scratched the surface of what we can achieve when we start to truly harness the power of the immune system.
Okay, I'm officially hooked on immunotherapy. But let's bring it back to Cobolimab for a second. We've talked a lot about its potential, but are there any downsides or risks involved that we should be aware of?
That's an important point. Like any new drug, Cobolimab can have some side effects. Some of the more common ones we've seen in trials include fatigue, skin reactions, and things like flu-like symptoms. These are generally mild to moderate, but in some rare cases, there can be more serious immune-related side effects.
So basically, it's the immune system kind of getting a little overzealous in its fight against the cancer, like those T-cell soldiers accidentally attacking some healthy cells in the process.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. When you're boosting the immune response, there's always a risk of it going a bit overboard and causing some damage to healthy tissues.
Yeah.
But researchers are working diligently to understand these side effects better and develop ways to manage them effectively, making sure that the benefits of the treatment far outweigh any potential risks.
So it sounds like it's a delicate balancing act, trying to boost the immune system just enough to effectively fight the cancer without causing too much collateral damage.
Exactly. And that's precisely why ongoing research and careful monitoring of patients in clinical trials are so crucial.
So what are the next steps for Cobolimab? What does the future hold for this promising new drug?
Well, there are several clinical trials underway at the moment exploring Cobolimab in combination with other therapies for various types of cancers. And some of these trials are already in the later stages, which means we could potentially see Cobolimab approved for wider use within the next few years.
That's really encouraging news for patients who are battling cancers that haven't responded to other available treatments.
Absolutely. It definitely offers a beacon of hope for many. And beyond Cobolimab itself, the ongoing research into TIM-3 and other immune checkpoints is continuously opening up exciting new avenues for the development of even more effective and targeted immunotherapies in the future.
It sounds like it's not just about this one drug, but a whole new way of thinking about and approaching cancer treatment.
Exactly. We're shifting away from simply trying to kill cancer cells directly and moving towards harnessing the power of our own immune systems to do the heavy lifting for us.
That's a really powerful shift in perspective. So while there's still a long road ahead and much research to be done, it feels like we're really on the cusp of a true revolution in cancer treatment.
I completely agree. And it's not just about treating cancer, it's about truly understanding the fundamental mechanisms of the immune system and how we can manipulate them to fight disease, which has implications that extend far beyond oncology.
Whoa. You've really got me thinking now. So you're saying this research into immune checkpoints could have ripple effects throughout the entire medical field?
Absolutely. Just imagine the potential for treating autoimmune diseases, for example. If we could figure out how to effectively dampen the immune response in those cases, it could be life-changing for countless people.
That's incredible. This deep dive has truly opened my eyes to the vast potential of immunotherapy and what it could mean for the future of medicine.
Yeah, it really has been a deep dive, hasn't it? We've covered so much ground today, from the intricacies of Cobolimab to the broader implications of biosimilars in research and the future of immunotherapy as a whole. And honestly, I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of what's possible.
I know it's really incredible to think about all the potential that's out there. So for our listeners who are eager to delve deeper into this topic, where would you suggest they start their exploration?
Well, there are some really excellent resources available online. The National Cancer Institute, for example, has a wealth of information on immunotherapy. And there are organizations like the Cancer Research Institute that are specifically dedicated to funding and promoting research in this field. I'd highly recommend checking those out.
Those are great suggestions. We'll make sure to include links to those resources in our show notes. And remember, folks, knowledge is power. The more we understand about these groundbreaking treatments, the better equipped we'll be to advocate for ourselves and our loved ones.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. This is a field that's evolving at an incredible pace, so staying informed is definitely key.
Okay, so before we wrap up this deep dive, I have one last question for you. We've talked about the amazing potential of immunotherapy and all the incredible research that's happening right now. But I'm curious, what's the one thing that you, as an expert in this field, find most awe-inspiring? What keeps you up at night in a good way?
That's a fantastic question. I think what truly captivates me is the sheer elegance of the immune system. It's this incredibly complex network of cells and molecules all working together in this intricate dance to protect us from harm. And the fact that we're starting to understand how to manipulate the system to fight diseases like cancer, it's just mind-blowing to me.
It really is, like we're unlocking a secret code that's been hidden within us all along.
Precisely. And this code has the potential to revolutionize medicine. It's a future where our own bodies become the most powerful weapon in the fight against disease.
That's a powerful and inspiring thought to end on. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Cobolimab and the future of cancer treatment, I want to encourage everyone listening to keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep marveling at the incredible potential of science to transform our lives.
And never forget, the next breakthrough could come from anywhere. So stay curious, stay engaged, and who knows, maybe one of you listening will be the one to unlock the next chapter in this amazing story of scientific discovery.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Cobolimab and the future of cancer treatment. Until next time, keep learning and keep those brains buzzing.